Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're still watching Nile TV International from Cairo, Egypt, and another special edition covering the Iranian-American-Israeli war. And with us now, live over the phone from the States is Dr. Paul Davies, professor at the Institute of World Politics. Dr. Davies, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Dr. Davies, the latest, of course, we have is U.S. President Donald Trump extending his ultimatum to Iran. So we now have 10 more days until April the 6th, given by the U.S. President to Iran to either reach a deal or face the striking of its energy infrastructure. Now, of course, there was a 48-hour ultimatum at the beginning. It was extended to 5 more days, and now 10 more days. Your comment on the developments?
Well, there's a couple of different reasons that this could be happening or is happening. One is that there is negotiations going on between Washington and Tehran, or some elements in Tehran that the president wants to continue to extend. Another issue may be that the president is still waiting to get more assets, military assets, into the area in order to enforce the opening of the Straits of Hormuz. And the third is, as we saw today, the NATO Secretary General says that NATO may be willing to engage along with the United States to open the streets.
Right, right. Now, who should we believe here? Because, I mean, we always, every story has two sides of the coin, and if America says east, Iran says west, and vice versa. The Iranian Foreign Ministry, of course, has denied what it called allegations by Mr. Trump that it had requested that extension. And in fact, there were reports from the mediators themselves denying this event. I mean, denying that this came, you know, as an Iranian request. So, where do you figure the truth is?
There's an old saying that truth is the first casualty of war. So we have a situation here where both sides may be speaking partly truth, and both sides may be speaking not so much the truth. So it's difficult at this point to tell. We do know that attacks are ongoing.
Yes.
We do know that that military assets are still moving into the area, and we do know that NATO is looking to join in. So this could be a tactical delay. This could be a strategic delay. At this point, it's difficult to tell.
Yes, it is. And, you know, as you said, what we do know here in day 27 of the war is that much of the same is happening each and every day. Iranian facilities are being bombarded from the air. Missiles are hitting Israel. Israel is hitting Hezbollah in Lebanon and taking swathes of southern Lebanon. And you know, and Iran is retaliating against Arab Gulf countries, sending drones. I mean, it's much of the same scenario we're hearing every day. We're watching every day. I want to ask you about the Strait of Hormuz, Dr. Davies, because it was not an issue before the war. Now it is. Now it is. It seems the Iranians are in control of the Strait of Hormuz, doesn't it? Because, I mean, they are the ones now allowing this or that country's ships to pass through. They are, you know, getting more money from the Strait. America, at the beginning of the war, had said it would send warships to protect, you know, ships in the Strait. That didn't happen. They're controlling the Strait, don't they? I mean, isn't this the biggest card they have, the Iranians now at the moment? They've also threatened to use the Red Sea card, the Houthis card, the Bab el-Mandab card. How do you see things evolving?
As you said, you know, Iran. This is their what we call a trump card. No pun intended. This is the only thing that they have to play at the moment. I mean, they can continue to fire missiles, but as far as anything that strategic is concerned, the Straits are it. And it was always assumed that the Straits would come into play in one way or another.
Right.
They've done this before, and they'll continue to do this. When we said that we would protect oil tankers, and again, understanding that it's not just U.S. military protecting the tankers. Part of the problem, and it's never discussed, is that the insurance companies will not insure tankers going through the Straits. So whether they're being protected or not, the owners of these tankers are going to be reticent to move those tankers through until the Straits are secured. And I think that's where we're moving to right now.
Right. Even the Iranians said that, by the way, the talk about the insurance companies. What about the Houthi card or the Red Sea card, the Bab el-Mandab cards?
Well, and again, this is taking a look at the entire situation. Iran is playing cards and they're losing. As far as the Houthis are concerned, the Saudis have kind of not hit them too hard, but they can. The United States has hit them and will do so again. Iran is losing protection. I mean, their ambassador from Lebanon was kicked out. UAE kicked theirs out. Qatar kicked theirs out. So this is a situation where Iran is losing friends left and right. The Houthis are going to be there, but the Houthis are controllable. They have a limited amount of resources, and right now they cannot be resupplied by Iran. So yeah, they're going to hold the Red Sea, but how long is Saudi Arabia going to allow them to have it?
Dr. Davies, how risky will the U.S. endeavor in Kharj Island or in any other island would be, especially that we are hearing media reports, sometimes confirmed by the Iranian side, sometimes by American officials, that there could be mines, explosive mines planted into some of these islands or around some of these islands. How dangerous or risky will such a deployment on Iranian islands or Iranian soil would be? And do you think Mr. Trump would, I don't want to say would have the guts, because he obviously does in every possible issue, but I mean, how risky could this be? As far as U.S. casualties, as far as, of course, the risk of U.S. lives.
Obviously, any military operation entails the risk to life. Military planners plan on these. Now, as far as we have to understand that when we talk about Kharg Island, we talk about any of the other islands, when we talk about the Straits, and we're not talking about our army fighting their army. And from our side, it's a combined arms situation. The first thing that's going to hit them is massive bombardment from the air if they have troops on the ground. Then the naval gunfire will come in and begin to get coming closer. And then you'll see the infantry come in. As far as the mines are concerned, the mines are there. We know that. We have mine clearing equipment. And the other thing is to remember, Kharg Island, everybody talks about Kharg Island. Kharg Island is not a primary target from what I can see. It's a deception. It has no strategic value whatsoever to the United States.
Okay, but sir, you're talking here about an invasion, boots on the ground, troops, and okay, so how risky, again, how risky would that be, you know, going into that big country that still has, despite the fact everybody acknowledges that its army has been hit very hard, but they still have probably hundreds of thousands, probably, if not, you know, probably hundreds of thousands of IRGC fighters and others who are willing to fight. So, I mean, how bloody could this scene be or become if such an incursion or American boots are put on the ground in Iran? If this is what you are alluding to.
Oh, no, as I said, what's going to happen is if we put boots on the ground, the boots on the ground are going to be put in place along the coastline, near the strait, in order to secure anti-ship missile attacks. As far as the massive bodies that Iran can deliver, yes, they can. But again, they have to get to where they can fight. And America owns the air. They have complete air superiority. Any movement by troops is going to be subjected to massive bombardment from the air,
no one can question the superiority of the American military. I mean, no one can question that. But the question here is, can Mr. Trump risk losing, say, hundreds of American lives in this war?
Well, we lost hundreds of American lives in Iraq. We lost lives in Afghanistan. This is if you decide to take the military option, which right now, obviously, we're trying not to. But if you decide to take the military option, you're going to accept casualties. That's just the way war goes.
But yes, but Dr. Davies, you acknowledge it could be hundreds, but it could be thousands as well.
Be that much. As tough as the RGC may think they are, they have to get to the troops first, and they're going to have a very difficult. How many hundreds of thousands of deaths can Iran sustain before they realize something's wrong? And while those
let me try to answer this. Knowing their martyrdom philosophy or ideology, they are ready to sacrifice millions of lives. Probably. And for them, losing millions of lives might be easier to absorb than it is going to be for Americans to lose thousands of lives. I think I've said it
that's a calculation that both sides have to make.
enough.
Now, we also have to accept the fact that as these troops move toward the coast, they're removing the protection of their own government. And we know that the Iranian population, tens of millions of the Iranians, are waiting for a chance to rise up. So where are these troops going to go? How much are they going to sacrifice?
Right. Before the war, Dr. Davies, yes, there was a lot of opposition in Iran. But after their country was hit, and after they saw that their fortunes, they were being robbed of their fortunes, even their energy installations are being hit, much of their fortunes is being depleted. So now many of those opponents have now turned to side with the regime, not necessarily supporting them or ideologically having the same beliefs, but they are in defense of their country. Some because their monuments, the historical monuments have been hit. Some because their loved ones have lost lives or homes. Others because they've been displaced. Others because they didn't think that they would lose civilian lives as well in this war, not only military lives. So the situation is different now, and I guess even Mr. Trump acknowledges that, because we heard reports that the Israeli Prime Minister, the war crime suspect, wanted at the ICC for genocide in Gaza, had suggested to Mr. Trump that he would repeat his calls for Iranians to go to the streets again, and Mr. Trump had told him they could be killed.
Again, this is all what ifs. What if this happens? What if that happens?
Yes, it is.
Now, you have mentioned that there's been a change of attitude. The thing is, we're seeing reports, the ones that can get out, that the population has not changed that much. We see them on the rooftops and screaming out of their windows, "Death to the regime." We see the Bashish firing from the streets into windows to try to stop this. So I don't know how much how much of a change there's going to be, and if there is a possibility that if we draw those troops away from the centers, what the civilian population can do.
Okay, let me ask you about another potential risk. Even if that happens, the Iranian regime gets hit, people go out in the streets, civil war in Iran breaks out, and chaos and hell breaks loose. How will this be of benefit to the United States, to Israel, to the Arab Gulf countries, or to anybody in the world? Isn't that a possible scenario?
Government and the regime that is in Tehran right now is going to benefit the world. They are the center of all disruption in the Middle East and the region and around the world. So that is what the benefit will be.
Okay. Another risk I'm going to ask you about if Mr. Trump follows through with the threat to hit the energy structures in Iran. What if Iran hits back at Arab Gulf countries' energy infrastructures, as it has vowed to do, and we see oil at 150, maybe 200? And what about the interests of the allies of the United States, those Arab Gulf countries? Their infrastructure could be at risk, at huge risk.
Well, the two things are that can happen there is that the Gulf countries will ask for some kind of cessation to the hostilities, or on the other hand, they could say we've had enough with Iran, and they could simply join in on the attack against Iran. They could use their missiles, they could use their capabilities to strike back at Iran.
Yeah, and that's the worst case scenario, of course. I mean, what ifs again?
Yes.
I mean, yeah. I mean, nobody would like to see hell break loose in the region, because, again, everybody, I guess, will be a loser. And then this will be a war with absolutely no winners. Now I want to ask you about a couple of things, Dr. Davies. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. The theory that this war was launched for oil, would you accept that theory, especially that Mr. Trump, when he was asked earlier on Thursday, about whether he would consider, taking over Iran's oil like what happened in Venezuela, he said maybe or perhaps or something in that direction. And Mr. Trump had talked before about, organizing navigation in the Strait of Hormuz with the Ayatollah. Remember when Mr. Trump said, me and the Ayatollah will control Hormuz? Do you agree with the oil theory?
No, I do not. I mean, the United States is not going to go to war for oil, other than because it is a global market. But you have to understand, the United States itself has enough oil internally to take care of all of its energy situations. The rise of the cost is not on the United States specifically. It's because oil is a global market, and that's what we're looking at. So did we go to war for the oil? No, we don't need the oil. We went to war for a moral purpose of stopping an immoral regime.
Right. Dr. Davies, I mean, I have to ask you that. I mean, the U.S. doesn't need oil. The U.S. doesn't need NATO, the words of Mr. Trump. The U.S., doesn't need the world. The U.S., but we are living together in one world, and this world has organizations. We have a United Nations, we have an international law, we have a charter. So how do you feel as an American citizen when the U.S. is being accused by many people around the world, and sometimes governments, of disrespecting international law, as if, they live alone in this globe. They don't need anything.
Well, I think that's a mischaracterization of how America sees things. No, we want to be a global citizen. And when we talk about Iran, as I said before, Iran is the center of all disruption. Iran is the center of all chaos. Iran is the center of all death and destruction in the region. So, again, the United States, a lot of people may say it, which you may see on the news, but the United States is trying to settle down the entire world. Say, all right, let's just stop killing each other once we get rid of these bad people.
Dr. Davies, the Russian foreign minister, Mr. Sergei Lavrov, on Thursday said that America wants to control energy markets, America wants to control the Strait of Hormuz, and he had some very tough statements. Perhaps the first time we've heard a loud voice coming from Moscow, or the loudest voice we've heard yet since the eruption of the strikes on Iran. Do you have any comment on that, or how do you think the Russian element and also the Chinese element will have any effect on the outcome of the war, if any? Dr. Davis. All right. All right. So we'll try to get Dr. Paul Davies from the Institute of World Politics back with us here on the line. We are in day, well, actually, you know, Cairo time. This is day 28 of the war, because the war erupted on February 28th. It's now some 2 hours into Friday, March the 27th, here in Cairo. The U.S. president has said that this war, could last. Yes, please, could last from 4 to 6 weeks. Already, we're going to end 4 weeks very soon. I think we have Dr. Paul Davies from the Institute of World Politics back with us on the line. Dr. Davies?
Hello.
Yes, Dr. Davies.
Yeah, hi, how are you?
Yes, thank you for staying with us, and sorry for the technical problem that we had. I was asking you, sir, about the comments by the Russian foreign minister earlier on Thursday, accusing the United States of trying to control energy markets, trying to control the Strait of Hormuz, trying to control everything. So how do you think the Russian factor will play in this war, and what do you make of the loud Russian voice that we are starting to hear now?
Well, again, we're talking about Russia and the United States. We're talking Lavrov.
Yes. Yes.
Take it all with a grain of salt as to what he's talking about. I mean, Moscow would love to also reopen their energy markets and control everything. This is part of international geopolitics. The United States doesn't want to control everything. They just want everything on an even keel.
Okay. What about the Chinese element? We know that the U.S. president has adjourned his visit to Beijing to mid-May. What about the China factor in this war? How do you see their role, again, if they do have any?
Well, they have a role, and they have a good reason to mediate within this. Again, understanding that China receives 40% of its energy from Iran, which is cut off right now.
Yes.
Except that Iran is allowing some tankers to get through. And Iran has to look to China because 90% of the Iranian exports go to China. So, yeah, they are very definitely a player in this if they wish to be. But they have to play this very cautiously.
Okay.
Because they are part of a consumer of Iranian oil.
Dr. Davis, Mr. Trump has repeated the 4 to 6 week timeline more than once, and we're now, I mean, after we close out, then we will have finished. But Mr. Trump cannot declare victory. The Strait of Hormuz is still controlled by Iran, can he?
Timelines are timelines. They come and go. Trump is probably one of the few people in government that really actually wants to hold on to a timeline. But we all understand that this is sometimes just simply not possible. If he wants it in 6, if it goes to 8, if it goes to 12, then so be it.
Okay. One final question, perhaps it is the final one, but maybe the most complicated one, and bear with me, please. The U.S. has
Okay.
put so-called 15 conditions, and the Iranians have put so-called 5 conditions, I believe. Now, seemingly, the most important U.S. condition to stop this war is, you know, Iran relinquishing its nuclear program. Remember the one that was obliterated last year? But anyway, relinquishing its nuclear program and giving up and handing over the 400 plus kilograms of enriched uranium. I guess this is the #1 priority for the Americans. And I guess the #1 priority for the Iranians is a halt to the war and a guarantee that this will not happen again. This is not just phase 2. you know, and then we'll have phase 3 and 4 and 5 and so on. Do you think they can at least, the two parties here, do you think they can at least agree on these two main points, if they are indeed, in your view, the main demand from this and that side?
The main demand from the United States is going to be relinquishing any nuclear ambitions and getting rid of the enriched uranium. And the one that Iran does not want to talk about is also limiting their missile capability. And we saw this with the long-range ballistic missile launch at Diego Garcia, which is probably would change the European minds a little bit. So, no, those are going to be hard conditions. As far as the Iranian demands, I think those are just pie-in-the-sky requests. They're asking for reparations. They're asking for the United States to completely pull out, and a guarantee that Iran will never be attacked again. How do you guarantee that if Iran attacks another country?
Okay. What about new order for the navigation in the Strait of Hormuz? That's an Iranian demand. Or putting in the Lebanese file, the Hezbollah file within the deal?
Start the second question. The Hezbollah file, Hezbollah is a terrorist organization. They're an international terrorist organization, and they cannot be any part of any negotiation. They have just got to be eliminated. The Lebanese government wants them gone, and most governments want them gone. As far as freedom of navigation of the Strait of Hormuz, it is an international waterway, and the right of navigation should not be impeded. They don't own the strait. They control a certain portion of it through terrorism. But in order for international economics to continue, the strait has got to be simply open to navigation, the other international passageway.
Okay. Well, I guess I have to be greedy and ask just one more question, and that specific question has to be asked. When and how do you think this ends? I mean, could it end with a deal where both the Americans and the Iranians claim victory, or will we see a prolonged continuation for until God knows when of this thing?
I don't think it's going to be an unending, or a lot of the opposition, let's call it a forever war. No, it's not going to go on and on and on and on. There is going to be some type of negotiated settlement or some kind of end to it. What it is, unfortunately, I am just not smart enough to see that far ahead. My crystal ball doesn't work that far ahead.
Nobody's crystal ball can do it anyway. But of course, I guess we have to all pray for peace. Peace for the globe. Not
always.
Yeah. Pray for peace. Thank you very much, Dr. Paul Davies, from the professor at the Institute of World Politics. Thank you very much, speaking to us from the US of A. And ladies and gentlemen, in less than 10 minutes, we'll be back with another news update here on Nile TV. Please stay with us.